In advocating for the motion today, the Leader of the Opposition, who I see is just returning to her place, I know she was waiting for me, her essential argument, I believe, is that we in this House have not spent enough time debating this issue and that perhaps just one more committee would be the answer. Madam Deputy Speaker, before we began our debate today, 5 statements, 2 debates and more than 13 hours of debate here in the House of Commons. That's my count of how long we've been discussing the Mandelson issue. That's a small c Conservative estimate because it cannot account for PMQs, all the other ministerial questions, and it is of course distinct from the hearings, the very important hearings, being held by the Foreign Affairs Committee and the Intelligence and Security Committee, as it forensically carries out its work in compliance with the humble address and the release of all papers relating to Lord Mandelson's appointment as the Ambassador to the United States. Madam Deputy Speaker, I do not believe that the British public believe that just one more committee is the answer. But I do want to set out why I think we are at an important juncture and look at 3 things, 3 actions that have been taken by the government. The apology from the Prime Minister, the action taken across government departments, and the ongoing scrutiny that is still being applied to this case. The apology. The Prime Minister has offered repeated and unconditional apologies from that dispatch box, from when he's been asked questions by the media and to the victims of Epstein. He's made clear that this was an error of judgment. There has been a message of contrition that I believe that has been heard by people in this House and across the country. We all make mistakes. That is not in dispute. So let's turn next to the action that has been taken and continues to take place across government. More than 300 documents have already been released to the Intelligence and Security Committee in full compliance with the humble address. And I think this is really important because I was a part of the debate, and it was a good debate that this House had, about involving the Intelligence and Security Committee in this process and giving them that oversight. And at the time, the benches opposite said that this was the very important thing to do, and there was a consensus across the House. But earlier today, I will happily.
Him giving way. I too was in that debate, and if the member remembers, as the House will show, it was the decision during the debate to suddenly do that. The government was going to vote against having the humble address. It was only because members from both sides of the House, particularly the Security Committee, put themselves forward to say, we have an option here. So the reason we were actually having the debate in the first place was because this side of the House compelled the government to come to give that papers away. He can't have it that it was just put out there by his side.
Andrew Lewin.
Thank the honourable member for his intervention. I remember it vividly. Members from both sides made the case, and I said in my remarks that it was an example of the House at its best because we came to a good decision to involve the ISC. But the reason I raised it again today, Madam Deputy Speaker, is because I was fascinated by what the Leader of the Opposition said. She characterised that committee as, quote, a never-never committee in her remarks earlier today, as if it would never come to the answer. So all of a sudden it seems that it's politically convenient that they've now lost faith in the ISC when they were advocating for it for so long. But more action has been taken, and it's important that it has been. On vetting has been discussed extensively today. The process that was in place under the last government and at the start of this government has gone and has already been changed by my honourable friend, the Chief Secretary, to the Prime Minister. In the future, all vetting will now be completed before appointments. That is absolutely the right change.
Right, but it's quite clear from the advice given by Simon Case in November 2024 that that was the situation. The only reason that we found out that there wasn't the alternative one was because the documents were forced into the open. And does he not agree that Chris Wormold's letter that suggested that everything had been done properly directly contradicts the direct advice given by the then Cabinet Secretary that you should do the vetting first? It's not compatible. It's illogical. And surely the honourable gentleman, who is giving the least embarrassing speech on behalf of the government so far, congratulations to him for that, can see that.
Andrew Lewin.
It's very kind. I'll see him on the cricket pitch in a week's time. Look, there's a serious point here in that there are a number of very senior civil servants that I'm going to come to who have given evidence on this and have said that process was followed. And it leads neatly into my next point about the importance of ongoing scrutiny. The scrutiny that is being conducted by the Foreign Affairs Select Committee. Very happy to give way.
On the point, and we've heard a lot of evidence today, does he agree with me that what's clear about the process is that there were so many inconsistencies and so much confusion that the Prime Minister was absolutely right to build back trust in that process and make the decisions that he has done?
Thank you. I appreciate the intervention of my honourable friend. I think he was absolutely right, and the House was absolutely right, to accept the humble address, to involve the Intelligence and Security Committee, and to give the Foreign Affairs Committee all the scope that it needs to ask questions of the key actors in the process. And just to remind the House, in the last few weeks and days, we've had evidence in public from Cat Little, Sir Oliver Robbins, Morgan McSweeney, and of course the Prime Minister himself repeatedly from that dispatch box. Madam Deputy Speaker, the Prime Minister and the Government is not hiding. It is putting everything in the sunlight, as an honourable member suggested earlier. But this is a deeply serious issue for the House and for the country. And I want to again associate myself with everyone who has spoken today about the pain that must continually be felt by the victims of Jeffrey Epstein every time this issue is raised. And our thoughts are with all of them. But the Prime Minister has apologised unconditionally. He has acted, and the government has acted, and scrutiny from 2 committees is still ongoing. So the judgment before us today is not whether scrutiny should happen, because it most clearly and evidently is. It's whether we should support a conveniently timed motion from the Leader of the Opposition to refer the issue to one more committee. I'm afraid, Madam Deputy Speaker, I do not believe that is the answer. And I would trust the judgment of this Prime Minister over the Leader of the Opposition every day of the week.